This is Jed McKay, and you're listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, welcome back, loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 242, and you are with your Hyper Seconchu, Ray. Hello as always, and joining me for this seminal episode is returning co-host, a great friend of the show, and patroni, Justin the Owl Osgood. Justin, welcome.
Thank you very much, Ray, for having me back, and thank you as always, loonies, for listening.
It's always good to hear that resonant voice of yours, Justin, back on the show. I got to say, look, we're recording right now, but I've just dropped just previous episode. You'll hear it, Justin. You haven't heard it yet, but another patroni, Drew, who was on the show, he had very kind words about your dulcet tones as well. So
nice.
You're making waves.
I love it. I love it. I'm blushing in advance about the compliments. I still remember, I think it was Chris that said I sounded like a warm glass of bourbon. I just love that. I thought that was such a great compliment.
Loonies, if you like your bourbon.
Such a great compliment.
Yeah, if you like bourbon, you know exactly then how that is with Justin's voice. But really fun to have Justin back. And we are doing a LUNAR-PICK classic book review. Now, if you look up into the night sky, you will see it is a waxing crescent, but fear not, as last episode, I had a little word with Khonshu, we're switching it around, so we're doing a waning crescent for all you moon files out there, lunar files, anyone that cares. And so we're doing a classic run, so basically that's anything pre-2000, all to do with Moon Knight, and it is Punisher Annual 2, so can't wait to get into that. But before that, of course, a big thank you to our patronies, a big thank you to one and all, the likes of yourself, Justin, a huge thank you. Those listed as co-producers and executive producers on the show. So a big thanks to the likes of Justin, Daniel, Drew, Derek, Kyle, Wayne, Jordan, Josh, James, Anthony, and Michael. And of course, we do have a few sponsors. I'd be remiss to not mention our top ones, which is Drew Toombs. He was just on the show not that long ago. And he has some music online. So Toombs on SoundCloud and Lurk Music on Bandcamp. Go check him out. I urge you. You can actually, on Bandcamp with Lurk Music, there's a special on. You can get his whole discography for not that much, so it's a good deal. Go check it out. Dance music, horror, sci-fi inspired soundscapes, all there from Drew Toombs. Also, Daniel doing a massive loony fan, Moon Knight fan, and a great creator in his own right. Fringe Knight, an original indie comic based on Erie, Pennsylvania's very own mysterious superhero. And Dreamland Comics from Illinois. We learnt a bit about that with the chat with Drew, the superhero superstore. So, Justin, here we are.
Yes.
Basking in the glory of a team-up. It's something that we've talked about in the past on the Idle Chats. And here we are. We have this beautiful... I dare I say it is the first team up between the Punisher and Moon Knight.
It is, and is just judging from that great cover. We're in for a hell of a story here with these two. It's a great first meeting between these two, and I think it's my favorite team up between these two characters.
Oh, you mean this particular issue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because their relationship hadn't gotten soured by all the crap that happened later on.
Exactly.
They were still on good terms with each other, and they hadn't gotten ugly with each other yet.
Yeah, I must say, I laughed when I reread, was it Moon Knight saying to the Punisher, we'll get into it, of course, Lenny's, but he's saying, after you. Like, to go through the door. Like, they are so polite to each other. And then I've just got that vision of that Matt Rosenberg exchange with the Punisher and Moon Knight where they're kind of sledging each other face to face. It's like, oh my God.
It's very far removed from
exactly. Just a few stories on and look what happens. But but Loonies is saying we're going to do this Lunar Pick. We're going to let's dive right into it, Justin. Just a bit of the credits here, of course. Punisher Annual Volume 1, Issue 2. It is titled Night Fight or Knight Fight. So you know how that's spelled. A little pun there. Released September 1989. We have writer Mike Barron, no stranger to the Punisher. Penciler Bill Reinhold. He also does the inks. Gregory Wright on colours. Letterer Janice Chiang, and editor Carl Potts, who also is no slouch when it comes to the Punisher. Now, this is available, of course. You can pick up your floppy. I'm assuming, Drew, that's how you're reading yours?
Yeah, I have the floppy right here, actually.
I think I just called you Drew. Justin.
That's all right.
So you've got your floppy there?
I do. And this one is actually kept in remarkably well condition as all of my Moon Knight comics are. So
fantastic. Justin
the cover's still intact.
Justin, a man of contrasts, Moon Knight comics, pristine condition, West Coast Avengers, and not so much.
Yeah, they're a little beat up, yeah.
But they show the love, they show the love.
Yeah, that's true. And my Spider-Man collection, too, is probably one of the most worn out ones. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, that's good. Again, showing the love. So that's, I mean, you can show love in many ways, and I'm sure you love your Moon Knight as well. But you just want to keep them nice and crisp.
Indeed.
Yes, and it's also available as well. I did check this. I didn't just slap this on the prompt sheet, Loonies. It is available on Comixology, so I'm assuming that's also on Marvel Unlimited as well. And I'll be reading this off the digital because I'm a bit lazy to get my floppy. Now, as always, sorry?
I think there's an omnibus. Isn't there a...
Yeah, I'm not...
Is there an Atlantis Attacks omnibus or something? I can't remember.
Oh, Justin, you are right on the money. Far out. This is me lazy prompt sheeting. Yeah, of course, Atlantis Attacks...
I wasn't sure, though. I thought that there was one released, but I wasn't positive.
There was one released ages ago. It had been out of print for a while. I'd been trying to track it down because I do love my Atlantis Attacks. But I do believe, I'm not sure if they may have just re-released it, or it is actually being re-released, Atlantis Attacks.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Also, on top of that, I think there's a complete collection, like a volume of Atlantis Attacks being released as well. So they're really re-releasing Atlantis Attacks in general. So high chance the Punisher's in there. I haven't done the detail. I haven't done the check there, but since this annual is part of that whole event, it could well be there as well. So again, that's where you can find it, Loonies, if you so please. Now, as always, and for those that may not have listened much before, Justin and I, and not Drew, Justin and I will be going through, a bare bones, which is like a summary, a synopsis. And Justin, can I please ask you to read this one out?
Sure, I will.
I'm sure I'm not the only one requesting that. I'm sure a lot of Looney listeners, are chomping at the bits to hear. So Justin will then read out a bare bones, which is a summary, which incidentally, we had done one in episode 110 as well, but, as I say, I always love the revisits, different perspectives. So Justin's here, so we'll see how your thoughts on that, Justin. And then we'll go into our aspects, basically, anything from writing, from references, from characterizations, art, all that schmozzle. We'll just bounce around and talk about what we'd like to talk about, and then we'll cap it off with a moon rating system. Now, Justin, of course, your opportunity to choose one or the other, vanilla or Connor shoes. Yep.
Connor shoes, I think.
Connor
tonight.
shoes. Yeah. I reckon I should. Do you think I should get rid of the vanilla rating? I think Connor shoes rating has by far become the most popular one. So maybe
I think you're right. Yeah, it seems to be consistently the most popular.
Okay, well I'm putting my stamp down now in episode 242. Justin, this will be the the last time that we'll have 2 ratings. Let's have just connoisseurs. But 242, Justin.
Yes, yes. And this is a strange coincidence because that happens to also be referential to my favorite band, which is Front 242.
Excellent.
So what a bizarre coincidence. I laughed about that so much last night when I realized it. Oh,
the moon.
Yeah. And it's almost coming up on it will be the 4th anniversary of actually when I met the band. I actually went to one of their concerts, and I had a meet and greet package, and I got to meet them and shake their hands and talk with them. It was so cool. It's one of the most singularly cool experiences of my entire adult life.
How did you win that? Was that a competition, or did you?
Oh no, I just bought them online, and
okay. Nice.
Paid for the upgrade, and
yeah,
I was so glad I did. You know, it was fantastic. It was everything I could have wanted and more. Yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. Front 242 Looney listeners.
Yeah.
So as you listen to us, put that on in the background as well. You know, just immerse yourself in the sonic.
That makes a great soundtrack for Moon Knight. Yeah.
Well, I do love also. I mean, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent here, Justin. Cabaret Voltaire, which you got me onto, which are great things.
Yeah, you've been liking them. Yeah, good.
Yeah, but I saw something on your Facebook post recently. Was the gentleman? Did he pass?
Yeah, Richard H. Kirk just passed away. Yeah, it was a strange coincidence too, because we had just spoken about I listened to his music as a soundtrack when I was reading some Moon Knight comics, I think the week beforehand.
Oh, wow.
And he passed away, and it was very sudden, unexpected. And
right.
Very,
Jimmy wasn't that old, so.
No, only 65.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
Very shame. Very sad. Very sad. But it's been nice to go back and revisit his catalog.
Yeah, I was about to say you can live on literally in his music as well. So it's great music as well. Another little recommendation there for Looney listeners: Cabaret Voltaire, Richard H. Kirk. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Anyway, let's get into it, Justin. I'm waiting. Everyone's waiting for. Would you please be so kind as to read the bare bones for Night Fight?
Sure, a Night Fight. After witnessing a seemingly normal customer satiate their needs with hunger by gerbil, Marc Spector investigates, which leads him to a mysterious organization named Save Our Society. Across town, the Punisher tracks down a small-time criminal who has been knocking off elderly women's social security checks for drugs, and it's not long before Frank is also led toward the shady Save Our Society, a NFP organization dedicated to curing drug addicts. Both Moon Knight and Punisher investigate one of the Save Our Society clinics in Long Island, and upon finding the Punisher's intended target, Ralph Newton, things turn ugly. The two are attacked by serpentine humanoids as Ralph himself turns into a snake-like being, but the Punisher makes short work of him. Regrouping back at Moon Knight's mansion, the next target is Borwart Estate on Long Island, where both Madame Viper and a Dr. Tyrone are stationed, and where Save Our Society are based. More battles with Serpent Men ensues, but this time Viper manages to drug the Punisher with what appears to be the same drug turning all the addicts into snake people. Frank goes mad, shooting anything and everything as Moon Knight continues to battle his way through in pursuit of Viper. Viper manages to make good her escape, and Moon Knight clashes with the drugged Punisher, but manages to subdue him with a nifty stint of mesmerism. Frank wakes up at Grant Mansion, grateful to Moon Knight for rescuing, but he soon leaves to continue his ever-raging war on crime.
Yes, so there you go, Looney listeners. That is a Punisher Annual, Volume 2, Night Fight. Of course, with the Punisher and Moon Knight guest starring. Now, Justin, I know that you have a lot to comment on this annual. But before that, overall, what did you make of this issue?
This one has a lot of sentimentality for me too, because at the time I was starved for Moon Knight. I think the last time I had seen him before this annual was in the West Coast Avengers issue, where he basically leaves the team. Because I didn't collect Marc Spector Moon Knight from the beginning. I know that had been going, I think, for a little while when this annual came out.
Right. Yes.
But I had missed that from the beginning. It wasn't until many years later that I got those. So I had been starved for Moon Knight, and when this came along, I was just in love with it. And I love, as I'll gush about further later on, the artwork, Bill Reinhold. I thought, what a great depiction of Moon Knight.
Yeah, it's very. Were you collecting, or are you collecting Punisher? Were you a fan?
No. To be honest with you, the only Punisher issues I ever got were like this one. They were part of crossovers, like this one, the Acts of Vengeance, the Evolutionary War annual, that type of stuff. I didn't read the Punisher regularly, so I didn't know that he was such a talent, I guess. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, because, I mean, for me, it was a little bit later, early 90s, only a couple of years later. For me, like, Mike Barron's writing and Reinhold's art is very Punisher. It's so cool. And, of course, it's a Punisher annual, but then to have Moon Knight drawn into that kind of world, it was, really enjoyable. And you know, I'd like to say I'm a casual fan of the Punisher. I actually used to collect a lot of Punisher and Punisher War Journal back in the 90s. Some really great one-shots, I'd say, and a few good arcs as well. But Punisher's it's always good to see him and to have him with Moon Knight. Was just a bit of a... And this, I only discovered recently that this was their first encounter together. So you kind of think, these guys should be bumping into each other a lot more, but this was the first time. Really do love it. And you know, if we're talking about that cover, I'd say it's one of the most indelible covers for me because of that pink. It's like, it's so weird having that... Like, that pink to me does not connect to any... any theme, or it's just out of the blue, but it gets you, doesn't it? I mean, you do look at it.
It does, yeah. It's so unexpected to have that bright pink on the top.
Yes.
And have that bleed down. I wonder if that was to get more attention on the Atlantis Attacks banner. Having that bright pink at the top there. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because pink is by no means... Atlantis Attacks is very much more, if you... Look at one of the main characters, Gore. It's like more like light blue, or it's serpentine green. You get bits of that happening. But yeah, Punisher decides to, let's just put the pink in there, and then you have Punisher and Moon Knight in an embrace on the front cover as well. So that's really cool. That's all you need, really. It's
a great image.
So I'll throw it to you, Justin. First point, what would you like to make? What did you make of the story? Or anything, or the art?
I love the story because it was kind of like a continuation of that wonderful Snake Riot story that you and I both love so much from Captain America. That came a few-ish... I think it was the year before this, possibly. Right. The year before this annual was that story in Captain America. But the Viper, for listeners who might not know that story, the Viper... essentially had a toxin which she put into the water supply for Washington, D.C. and turned everyone, including Ronald and Nancy Reagan, into snake people. She stormed into the White House and had a gun to Nancy's head. It was fantastic. So I think this was her next appearance after that. And I was excited about that because I love Viper as a villain, and I was happy to see her show up in this.
Yeah, it's the Serpents and the Serpent Society very much had a purple patch around the late 80s to the 90s, didn't they? They really did feature heavily in a lot of stuff. This, I mean, even to talk about this annual, the backup story, the saga of the serpent. The serpent crown was obviously going around as well. All of which, incidentally, Loonies, Justin and I will be covering in a bonus episode exclusive to Patronies. We'll be looking at all the backup stories. But yeah, the serpents seem to have such a big thing. Like they were such a big thing back in the 80s. I'd love to see them back again. Just because it's a bit of, it's fun. Like we've had Hydra, we've had to an extent a little bit of AIM. I'd like to see a bit more, another faction, you know. So
I'd like to see that too.
Yeah.
I'd like to see an actual team of supervillains show up in the MCU.
Oh, that would be, yeah. I mean, are there any? No, the Wrecking Crew is the only one I can think of off the top of my head. The Sinister Six, did they come back?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I haven't been following. Yeah, I haven't been following Amazing Spider-Man. No, I don't think they're back. You're right.
It's possible that they're teasing them for the new Spider-Man film, the Sinister Six or something like that. But as far as like the event, something to somebody to fight the Avengers, somebody on that level. I'd like to see a team of villains. Perhaps they're going to work on that over the next year or two, is building a bunch of villains up to become a team.
That'd be great.
I'd like to see that. Yeah.
Get Hunter's Moon in there.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd like to see Hunter's Moon.
Throw them all in.
Yeah, I'd like to see him like mix it with the others to see how he kind of plays out. But looking back at this story though, look, Justin, I thought the writing was great. I mean, as I said, typical kind of Punisher, Mike Baron style story where it's a lot of how shall I say, not stalking, but a lot of tracking criminals, street villains. Yeah. Punisher does that. There's multiple locations. There's a hierarchy of criminals, build up. So all this is very similar to a lot of Mike Baron's stuff. But the opening sequence, Justin, now it would have to be one of the funniest ways a superhero gets embroiled into something that's larger than it is, because what we have is Marc Spector. I'm assuming he's going to the pet store to buy something himself, or he's just window shopping and having a little geese inside the pet store. But he sees a guy eat a gerbil, and that kind of kicks
in the store. Yeah, in the middle of the store,
and that kicks things off. Which, incidentally, if we're going to talk about references, Justin, I found that, and again, very much a thing of the time. I found that very like a little bit of a nod to V, the final battle. Do you remember that?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. The original V gave me nightmares as a kid, because I vividly remember the scene where the woman claws at that dude's face and it's like reptile underneath. And
yes,
as a kid, I can't remember how old I was, but it just horrified me. I was like, oh my God!
I was exactly the same. That was the two things that I remember from V. Ripping the skin off to reveal the scaly green underneath, and also they love doing it. There's a person putting a mouse in their mouth. That was I remember that in V as well. So I think this seems to be a bit of a nod to that. Yeah.
And that was only, I think, a couple of years before this, so that was still fresh, I think, the consciousness. Yeah.
It ended up being a popular thing. Everyone was. Eating rodents.
It was the thing to do in 1989.
Yeah. So a funny opening sequence, and Marc Spector, he's got great intuition, because he goes, look, there's something bigger than Ben-Hur here, that the guy just eating a gerbil, and he investigates it. Like, he asks Frenchie to go. They're back at Grant Mansion, and he asks him to, just check out this guy, because he seems a bit weird, like he ate a gerbil. And actually, backtracking, Mark follows him to that estate, first off, that Bogwart estate, Save Our Society.
Save Our Society, SOS.
Yeah. Which is a common thing we see throughout the whole Atlantis attacks. There's, I know the Daredevil annual had a bit of that as well. So this front for creating more serpents, I guess, for the Viper side of things. But yeah, no, that was quite interesting. What did you make of Moon Knight's entrance into this this story?
I love that. I thought that was very smart. Just having him walking along and seeing this guy just suddenly eating a gerbil. I thought, what a clever way to involve him in the story. How random.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I love that he had Frenchie right on the horn to help him out.
I think it's really cool as well. Like, considering this is a Punisher annual, Mike Baron he opens up with the guest star, which is great, you know. Generally, they very much play second fiddle to the main character, but you get the sense that, you know, that this could easily just be a Moon Knight annual rather than the Punisher. I mean, they've really got level pegging. So, like, kudos to one of your points about Mike Baron doing a great job juggling both the characters and multiple characters. We've got Ralph Newton, we've got Helmut Sneed, we have Dr. Tyrone. There's a fair few people.
Viper, and all of
as well.
Yeah, all the.
Yeah.
And then when Punisher goes crazy, that's.
Yeah. There's a lot happening. Did you get a sense writing wise? How were the pacing, the beats for you? Was it a bit stilted and chop and change, or did you think it was quite fluent with what he did?
No, I think it flowed actually really nicely. All the dialogue, from scene to scene, and I was familiar with Mike Baron's writing on a very different title, which is Nexus. It's a science fiction title.
Dark Horse, is that the one?
It was first to begin with, and then it went to Dark Horse in the 90s.
Yep.
Yeah. But I love his writing style. I really do. Yeah. It's probably one of my favorites. I think he's a brilliant writer. And I love that he did all this stuff with the Punisher. Reading this back has definitely got my curiosity piqued to go back and read some of this old Punisher stuff, especially if Bill Reinhold's art is throughout a lot of it, because I really love it, and I would love to see more of it.
Yeah, I can't profess to say that from memory. I don't know how long Reinhold did, and I could be mixing it up with a very similar looking artist as well. But I definitely remember the early Punisher issues that I got, which was around Acts of Vengeance, where Punisher goes to Latveria and he faces Doom.
I love that.
Yeah. That, to me, in my mind's eye, that looks very similar to Bill Reinhold's work. So it does feature in there a lot. And the art, I mean, we're talking about the art. I think the panel layouts are really good. I think they worked really well. The fight scenes were quite good. There's not as many like splash pages that you see with maybe a lot of later comics, but I don't think that detracts at all from it.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think it actually works well with Mike Baron's writing, because if you go back to it, so the thing with Mike Baron, he's really good, but and similar to you, I like his writing. He does, similar to Doug Mention away, he does introduce a lot of characters, and sometimes you may, because you have to really know Ralph Newton and Helmut Sneed and all that stuff, so you've got to really follow what's going on, because they're not recurring characters, but they're used intrinsically in the story. So Mike Baron does do that, which I think is, and I think the art complements that as well, in the sense that you've got a very, in the best sense of the word, very busy kind of story. But yeah, no, really enjoyed. Really enjoyed the way it was told. I've got a bit of a hole in the plot here. I've mentioned. So
yeah, I saw that in your notes. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. So Moon Knight says Helmut Sneed uses a stolen credit card to buy the gerbils, but he identifies the gerbil eater through the credit card used. Like, wouldn't he then have been led to the person who lost their credit card instead, rather than... So anyway, little things like that.
Yeah.
But they're, I mean, easily overlooked, I mean, this is really nitpicking, that sort of stuff. What did you make of, I guess, themes-wise? I noticed you had something here. Oh, you mentioned that already, Justin, I guess, the continuation of this snake riot.
The poisoning, the mutating people into serpent people. Was that theme that was brought over, and I thought that was a great concept for a Punisher story, because first you had Captain America dealing with all these mutated serpent people, and of course he did everything he could to keep from hurting them. But then you have the Punisher who just mows them down with the machine gun instead.
Stark contrast.
I like the contrast there, dealing with the same type of threat. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And then you have Moon Knight who's beating them all up with nunchucks, and so you get kind of the in between there.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because Moon Knight is not like Daredevil or Spider-Man who teams up with the Punisher. He doesn't kind of berate the Punisher at all. I guess because he comes from that background as well. Like, he doesn't say don't kill.
Right.
But, he doesn't, in this instance, this Moon Knight, he doesn't kill anyway. He's not at that stage yet of putting crescent moons on people's foreheads, so he's not, he hasn't turned dark yet.
Ripping faces off.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Also as well, I've got to point out that this, similar to what you're saying about this being in the spirit of the Snake Riot, it really is kind of an off, like a secondary plot to Atlantis attacks. So for those that are unfamiliar, it's Lord Gore. Well, I don't know if he's named Lord, but there's a dude who wants to resurrect Set, and he gets these brides of Set and stuff. This is really a secondary story where I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, but Viper and Dr. Tyrone, they're kind of vying for power as well, and I think they want to secretly overtake or do away with Gore. So they're going on their own. This is their kind of journey. So we very much see Viper's side of Atlantis attacks rather than Gore's side.
Yeah, Dr. Tyrone is actually Tyrannus.
Yes,
the Hulk villain, the Hulk nemesis.
Yes,
who had done an alliance with Gore and Lyra.
Yes, that's right. And he is from, again, Tyrannus. He was from the middle of he comes from the middle of the earth or something. I think deep down.
Yeah, he's an immortal. He drank from, I think, the fountain of immortality a long time ago, and so he's immortal and has his own kind of race of underlings.
Yes. But he's hoping to betray Gore, I think, because I read, I can't remember. I read some more Atlantis. I think it's in the Spider-Man annuals of Atlantis attacks later. It gets revealed that it's Dr. Tyrone, Tyrannus, and he actually turns on Viper. I mean, no spoilers, and controls her and stuff. So, so this is very much like the Atlantis attacks is such a vast event. It was really great. It spanned across a lot, and again in this annual, you get at the very back, you get more backstory, and we even have like Conan in there, Justin, which is awesome. But yes,
love that. Yeah,
me too. This theme definitely permeates through Atlantis attacks, although it isn't like the main story. Now, we mentioned before as well, Justin, about the relationship, and I think I put it in the discussion thread as well. Is it a bromance between the Punisher and Moon Knight? There's very much they're very much amicable towards each other, which is surprising considering the Punisher. You'd imagine he'd be a little bit more untrusting. He'd be a little bit more suspicious. He doesn't usually like costumed superheroes. I'm not sure if that happens until later on, but he kind of, disregards them as just idiots. But he seems to get along with Moon Knight quite well here.
Yeah, it's like they have a mutual respect from each other right off the bat, right from the beginning. Yeah. Because how often would you see Punisher, as soon as they meet somebody, walk up to them and shake their hand? I mean,
exactly.
I can't think of anybody. Honestly, I can't.
And sorry.
It's interesting. I wonder if he just senses in, like maybe an intuition. He senses in Moon Knight. This is kind of not a kindred spirit, but the next step down from that. Maybe.
He's probably sensing this guy's not judging me. I like him. Right. He's not judgmental.
He's not telling me not to kill every 5 seconds. Yeah.
And then, to flip it on the other way, Moon Knight invites him to Grant Mansion, as Marc Spector. So that's the height of trust, isn't it? So it's kind of like, you can come over to my house. It's like they're really buddies here. Like you've just met. Like I'm sure the Punisher would have had a reputation at this stage of being, you know, a psychotic enforcer who just kills criminals. I mean, if you were Moon Knight,
at this point, he had been around for a while.
Yeah.
Moon Knight would have definitely heard of him at this point. Yeah,
wouldn't you kind of be a bit like, I don't know if I should invite this guy over? But no, he invites him to the war room, as he says, and they work strategy. So that was I thought funny, and it is funny seeing later on their relationship's always a little bit on and off. I mean, even they fight in Marc Spector Moon Knight, the series, but they inevitably kind of, team up again. And then in the most recent the recent run of The Punisher with written by Matthew Rosenberg, they're totally at odds with each other. So yeah, it's a weird thing. But I guess it's, as you say, it's good that they started off so friendly towards each other.
And I wonder too, in Marc Spector Moon Knight, during that Blood Brothers story, I often wonder, going back and reading that story in hindsight, I wonder if Randall Spector hadn't been involved in that, if things would have gone completely different. If it had just been the cult of Khonshu that was the priestess there that was the villain, without Randall Spector being involved. I wonder if things would. I bet things would have been completely different in that story, and they wouldn't have been at odds with each other.
No, absolutely, for sure. Because the fact that Punisher was going after Randall was the pinch point there for Moon Knight. And just thinking, casting back earlier in the Marc Spector Moon Knight run when they teamed up against Ultimatum.
Right.
Flag Smasher. Yeah. I mean, that was far more amicable as well. That was more like this relationship. So, it did progressively, I guess, get a little strained. But like I said, it's really nice to see them, be friendly towards each other.
And during the round robin story too, they worked together during that one too.
That's right.
Yeah,
Punisher he was a little bit
right around 92, so that was a few years after this.
Yeah. Wow, 92, like, it's such a different tone of book, isn't it? Especially with the Bagley art. I guess it's like cleaner, comic booky. I love Bagley's art.
I do too. It's so classic. Yeah, it's classic Marvel stuff from the 90s.
Yeah.
But good. It's good. Good 90s. There's good 90s and bad 90s.
Of course.
A lot of people crap on the 90s, but you have to realize that there's a lot of good 90s stuff. You just have to look for it.
I think it gets a bad rap, the 90s. I mean, every decade has good and bad, It's just, unfortunately, the 90s is remembered for excesses. So,
extremes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you go back and read that New Warriors from issue number 1 in 1990, that great Mark Bagley artwork, that's great. That's really exceptional stuff. So
I'm in the process of properly kind of taking care of my floppies there, Justin. So I've ordered some backing boards and some bags, and because I've got my New Warriors just in a tub, but I want to, once I kind of get them all sorted in bagged and boarded, I want to actually read them again. That was such a great run. Mark Bagley.
When you do that, let me know, and I'll read it in tandem, and we can chat about it. It'd be fantastic.
Awesome. I remember just early on, I think, is it Hyde? He was in there somewhere, and
Mr. Hyde was,
Hyde.
And Terrax the Tamer was. Yeah.
And I love Silhouette as well. She was cool. She had a cool ability. Anyway.
She was cool. It was a great team. It was a great comic book.
It was a great... Yeah, I mean, it's not just because they're the OG New Warriors, but I genuinely love that team more than what the New Warriors kind of became. Just having Nova and Namorita and Marvel Boy, just classic, and then Night Firestar, and then Night Thrasher, just classic. So
great stuff.
Yeah, and Speedball was in there as well. I love Speedball.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Speedball was great.
He's got a bit of a bum rap as well. He was going to be like the next big thing after Spider-Man.
He was,
but didn't work out. So
It's Steve Ditko creation.
It was,
well.
yes, yeah. Who was it? I think I've repeated this before on the podcast, but so in the 60s, Spider-Man was the one to aim towards a younger audience, and everyone and then the 70s, I think that was Speedball. I can't remember, but every decade there was like a character similar to trying to emulate Spider-Man. Miss Marvel is the most recent one, and she's gone great guns. And I think Darkhawk was the other one in the 90s. I think the 80s was Speedball. And 70s, I can't remember who they tried to make. But anyway, yeah, just again off topic. I should ask Justin, Moon Knight. How did you find him written and portrayed by Mike Baron in this run?
I really liked his portrayal. I think this is the only time he's written a Moon Knight appearance, unless I'm mistaken. Yeah. So I thought he did a great job.
Yeah, I think he got the voicing right. I mean, he didn't. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And his thoughts actually during the fight when he's battling with the Serpent Men is probably my favorite line out of the whole issue, when he says, "The time to start worrying about the Punisher is when the gunfire stops." I love that.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's very full.
Such a great line.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And so I love that.
Well,
just all throughout, it's great witty stuff, and also when he gets when the Punisher gets injected with the drug, and starts wigging out and starts going crazy. And he goes, "I am the god of Hellfire, and I bring you." You know, I hadn't at the time. I had no idea. I was like, "What the hell is he talking about?" Because I hadn't heard that song. That features that line in it, and so I was, "What is he talking about?" And then a few years later, I heard that, and I thought, "Oh, that's what he was talking about." He was quoting a song.
What song is that?
It's a song called Fire, and I would have to look up the name of the artist because I can't remember it.
Okay.
But it's from the 60s. It's a really kind of psychedelic. Arthur Brown. Okay. Arthur Brown, and it was 1968. It's a really far out, trippy hippie psychedelic 60s song. But yeah, I hadn't heard it, and when afterwards I reread this issue and I was like, "Oh, that's what he's talking about."
That's a great reference. Good pickup. Yeah. Jeez, that's a nice one. So Arthur Brown, Fire, awesome. I thought he was just, as you're saying, I thought he was just wigging out. And what I found interesting,
me too.
I mean, but what I found interesting there was it was a subtle hint that the Punisher's willpower was amazing, because he didn't. I'm assuming Viper injected him with something to turn him into a serpent, but it seemed like he was resisting it, and he was really conflicted, hence his kind of psychosis when he was going a little bit mad. I thought that was really cool, because it gave you a point of difference for the Punisher to, say, a normal person, and it I think it's consistent with him in that he's, I think it's that emphasis on he's so driven, you know, even when he gets injected and he gets drugged and potentially loses control, he doesn't want to relinquish that control. So I thought it was a really good way to portray him in that sense.
That's a good point. That's a good point, because all these other people were junkies. You know, they were heroin addicts that were trying to get clean, and they were getting instead mutated. So their willpower was already in rough shape. So they were probably really easily mutated by this stuff, because they just kept taking it. But for the Punisher, who, you know, his willpower is obviously much greater. He could resist that.
Resistant to his pain tolerance is high, and it seems like his mental fortitude is quite strong as well. If we stick to this kind of scene there, Justin, now this is obviously one of the main points. Moon Knight subduing the Punisher with a little bit of mesmerism, a bit of hypnosis. Justin, what did you make of this?
I thought I was really surprised by this. I thought for sure, you know, he's going to knock him out or something. He's going to, like, you know, do some crazy action with the nunchucks. he's going to knock the Punisher out cold and then drag him back to the mansion. But no, he does this crazy hand stuff with the crescent darts. It's fantastic. It's so completely unexpected. I loved it. And right before that, we get possibly my favorite panel out of the whole comic, where you see the Punisher. It actually made me laugh. The Punisher frothing at the mouth,
yes,
with his eyes, these people's the size of pinholes.
Pins, yeah.
You're all trash. He's just
Yeah.
going through the mouth. You're all trash. He's just mowed down a bunch of these guys.
Yeah.
And
well, it's scary.
Moon Knight saves the day.
Yeah. Oh, he does. He's a level head. He's the sober one. So, but again, it's another little scary insight into the deep recesses of the Punisher's mind. I think it brought that drugging has brought something out of him, and I again took it as him just like that. That's his real deep down feelings. Not of everyone, but he's just there's a real hatred and a real burning kind of. Really
rage.
Strong. Yeah, rage. Yeah. So again, I like that from Mike Baron. But yeah, the Punisher, cool. I mean, Moon Knight, the cool head, even in the war room as well. So he seems to be the calmer one. Glad he's there, because the Punisher would have just gone right off, all over the place. Speaking also again of your favourite quotes, I've got to say, I had a note here. I never realised the Punisher was so articulate. Now there's there's just a bit where he just goes, "This place is a little ostentatious." It just seems a little against. It reminded me of there's, gosh, I think it is in Round Robin where you get the introduction of the Punisher and he's beating up on these street crims, and he's going into like grammar. He's going like, you can't use that double negative here, and because this is he's really showing his education here, the Punisher. It's really quite nice. So he's no dunce. Let's say that Frank is an intelligent guy.
Yeah, that's true. He's not just a dummy with a bunch of guns.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah,
he's a smart guy.
Yeah, exactly. Any I don't know, any other final notes, Justin, that you'd like to make mention of?
Well, I feel like this is a little bit of a missed opportunity as far as the Viper goes, because I feel like Viper could have potentially gone on to be a recurring nemesis for Moon Knight, because she's an anarchist, she's a terrorist, and she's got that kind of kind of weird snake vibe thing going. Yeah. I feel like that her motives would have put her at odds with Moon Knight at some other point, and it would have been. I would have loved to have seen a story like that in the 90s. Yeah. When like Silver Sable was around. I know I talked about. I would love to see Silver Sable and Moon Knight team up together, but I thought that would have been a great story, because she did go after the Viper at one point, Silver Sable, in the 90s with Captain America. Yeah. And I wanted it to be Moon Knight instead.
Yeah. Oh, Viper's awesome. I'd like to see her used a bit more. She seems to come and go. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we get to see more of her soon. Was that Viper? It was, wasn't it? I've recently read Dead Man Logan, which is not that. I mean, it's not that recent, but she was in that as well. That was, I think, the last I saw of her. But yeah, she'd be a great villain. I mean, yeah, for sure. Get her in there. Again, as I said, any Serpentine villains, I'd love to see more of. We've got to bring back the Serpent Crew. Maybe
the Serpent Society needs to return. Definitely. Yeah,
Puff Adder. And Cobra, he's good. Like
Cobra, Sidewinder.
Isn't Cobra the one? He's a bit of a slippery customer. He just kind of can wiggle through, and then he can infiltrate.
Yep. And then there was a Cottonmouth who could distend his mouth so that he could bite somebody's head right off.
You just need those over the top villains. Bring them back.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, Justin, if there's no other notes,
no, that was really all I had for that.
Yeah, me too. I'm just scanning my notes as well. That's about that's all. Would you like to give this a rating then for Punisher Annual 2 Night Fight? What would you give this, Justin?
I'm actually going to give this one a very high rating, and not just for sentimental value, but because I think it's a really good story. And like I said before, I think it's my favorite team up with Punisher and Moon Knight. It was in the beginning before things went bad, and I really liked the way they worked together in this issue. I enjoyed it a lot. So I would give this one an 8 out of 10.
Nice. So you've got a beautiful yellow man. That's Justin. That's a Connoissue's rating system. Look, you've probably just seen that on the prompt sheet, Justin. I've bumped mine up. I've had to, because just talking about it again, yeah, it is a fun issue, I must say. It is solidly written. The art is beautiful to look at. You get plenty of action. There's a lot of meat in the dialogue as well, so you can really, it's not something that you just breeze through quite easily. You've got to kind of involve yourself in the story, follow the characters. It had the funniest opening for me that I've seen in a long time, with the man eating the gerbil, and that being the start. It's just bonkers. Yeah. It's just so out of left field. So I'll give it a 7.5. So I'll stick to the Connoissues as well. That's veering towards, I'd say, a big beautiful yellow man as well. It's on the upper side of the 7.5 rather than the lower. But yeah, really enjoyable. Highly recommended. And again, Loonies, if you haven't read it, this is the first team up of the Punisher and Moon Knight. And if you've read the more recent runs, then you can actually see them really be buddy here. So it's not often you get the Punisher so so open to
amicable, and just walking up to Moon Knight and shaking his hand. I think that was one of the most surprising things of the whole issue, to be honest with you.
It is, yeah. I mean, actually, also as well, the ending. So he gets taken out. He gets. I think he's out for how long? Like 2 days or something. He's unconscious.
A couple of days. Yeah,
couple of days.
It takes a while to work that out of his system.
But he gets taken care of by Frenchie and Mark and Samuels, I'm assuming, at Grant Mansion, and then he ups and leaves. So again, back to Punisher mode of thank you, I've got to go. So very good indeed. Go check it out, Loonies. Well worth it. Having said that, we do have some feedback. So why don't we just take a quick short break, Justin, and then we can wrap up the rest of the show.
Sure.
Hello, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
And we're hosts of Capes on the Couch, the podcast where comics get counseling.
Superheroes don't always get to go home happy. That's where we come in.
We offer psychiatric and mental health analysis of comic book characters.
So check us out at capesonthecouch.live and across all social media platforms at Capes on the Couch.
Yes, welcome back, Looney listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is episode Front 242, and I am with Justin the Owl. What's good, Justin? We've just discussed the Punisher Annual 2. Do you feel a vibe? Do you feel like, I don't know, do you feel like frothing at the mouth? Do you feel like
I am the god of Hellfire?
Makes me want to listen to that song, actually. Yeah, I'm going to have to tune in.
You get a kick out of it.
You're going to have to Spotify it. But before we go, Looney listeners, we just have a bit of feedback. Thank you so much. Just a smattering from Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Justin, would you be so kind as to... We've got one from Facebook here from one of our patroonies.
Yes. Hi, Jordan. From Jordan writes, "Oh man, still got to get this one. I could imagine a wealth of dialogue opportunities between these two. Similar backstory, similar view on their work. I would love to hear them talk about life, death, morality, martial arts, find out what they bond over, find out what they disagree on."
Yeah. Thank you, Jordan. Very, very interesting. So Jordan, I guess you haven't read it, and we don't get them talking about life and death and stuff, but it was good to see them together again, and I guess they, in their actions, they showed what they bonded over, which is mindless violence and the urge for justice, I guess. But it would be very interesting, actually. I mean, I don't know how good a comic book it would make, but I'd love to get them both down together, and maybe at at Jenna's diner. Just have Frank there ordering his truckie's breakfast, and them just talking about, what do you reckon about life?
Yeah, just having a chat, trading war stories. I think it would be great.
Exactly. How do you think it would go down, Justin, if Moon Knight or Mark asked Frank, Frank, what's your sense of morality? That would,
I don't know. That could potentially go down very badly.
I think we'd be going to some deep, dark places there with Frank.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Jordan, for that. Really appreciate your response. Thank you. And considering I posted up that discussion thread a little bit late. Just a couple of ones from Twitter. So fellow Collective Men members, one of my co-host, Connor, from the Last Unscript on Superman podcast, he writes in and says, Punisher team-ups always have the best covers. I couldn't agree with you more, Connor. Actually, a lot of Punisher covers were very good. I'm not sure, Justin, if you had seen the smatterings of the 90s covers for the Punisher, but they really elevated the art form.
Yeah, I remember the covers were great. And that they did a few collections of some of those, didn't they, recently, of the 80s stuff around this time of period?
Probably, yeah.
Maybe some epic, an epic collection.
Oh, the epic, yes.
Like
the Mike Baron one, I think, has just recently been released, but they have, I can't remember the other. There's about 5 volumes of the Punisher in epic collection form. So a lot of them, range from the 80s to the 90s. Worth checking out. The covers are great. I mean, I remember I think they tried to outdo themselves each time. I remember the War Journal covers. Like there was one of, it's a photograph of a wedding cake, and it had Frank at the top with his wife, but it had blood just running down. It was really cool.
I think I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really cool. Now, what was the difference? I was always curious. What was the difference between Punisher War Journal and Punisher War Zone?
Oh, good point. I'm not too sure. I didn't collect Warzone, to be honest. War Journal, I just know the difference between that and the regular Punisher title. It was more like entries. Like there was a lot of captions of Punisher War Journal. Yeah, like
him telling stories about stuff he had done before.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. But I mean, they were still just stories of the Punisher. So yeah, maybe they were past adventures, considering whenever that canon was or the status quo was during that time. But yeah, it was.
Okay, I was curious about that because I know there were 2 or 3 books at one point, maybe even more than that in the 90s.
They were cashing in.
I was always curious about what the difference was between War Journal and War Zone.
Oh, yeah. I think probably as much difference as Amazing Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man. Just cashing in. Yeah, Punisher was a big thing in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And one of the biggest fans, I'll have to shout out to Dave Finn, another fellow Collective member and host of Signal of Doom. And Dave just writes in, this is a great issue. Of course, Dave. He loves his Punisher, so I would not expect anything less from you. So thank you so much there on Twitter. Final one, Justin, from Instagram.
Make Mine Moon Knight writes, one of their best crossovers. Love comics from this era. They always draw the city with detail. More effort than today. Love the panel of them standing side by side and looking down, too.
Yeah, thank you.
There's some fantastic art in this. And I know the exact panel that he's talking about. That's a really great one.
Yes, and I absolutely see where you're coming from, mate. My Moon Knight as well. Like some of the older comics, different art. But I think also a lot of modern artists as well. I mean, they're no slouches. I mean, you've got to look at, you got to look at your Smallwoods, and from Spider-Man and Pero Pere, I say Pepe Larraz as well. Some great artists today that just really, really give you works of art with their artwork. Elena Casagrande, I'm going to say a big shout out from the Black Widow run with Kelly Thompson. Her art is amazing. So, yeah.
Ooh, I'll have to check that one out. I haven't read any of that yet.
Oh, yeah, please do. That and her covers are great. But no, understand totally, mate, my Marvel. There's something really alluring about the older stories and the older artwork, too.
Definitely agree.
Well, that pretty much, thank you so much, Looney listeners, for all the feedback there. Spectacle. Justin, anything you'd like to shout out? I know you're very busy on Tomes of Evil.
Yes, and actually you'll be joining us very soon.
Yes.
To do a spotlight on Skeletor.
Yes. It should be
we're very, very excited about that. Yeah.
So much fun, but go check it out, Looney listeners, if you haven't already. Tomes of Evil, fellow collective members as well, hosted by Russell and Justin. It's a real hoot. I want to just mention By Beast here because it's always on this show. So a tip of the hat there to Tomes of Evil and the By Beast.
Keeping up with the By Beast.
Keeping up with the yeah. What's that quote that you say, Justin? Too bad. I guess that's just too bad.
Oh yeah, I get that's just too bad. Yeah.
A reference there. If you know Masters of the Universe, I guess you'd get it as well. Well, that about wraps us for this episode. A huge thank you as well, Justin, as always. So thank you so much. Next phase.
Yeah. Thank you for having me back. Yeah.
Hang on, Justin. Hang on. Next phase, we've got you again. I'm not sure if you know it. We've actually recorded it already, except for the idle chat. So next phase, Loonies.
Oh, we've done our time traveling. Yeah.
We've done our time traveling. Yes. So we have past Ray and past Justin next week. So episode 243, it will be an idle chat. That is to be confirmed as to what we're going to talk about. But we, Justin and I, have something packaged up and with a big bow on it. We've already got our review, which is Another Side of the Moon. That's later in the week with episode 244. But anyway, a huge thank you once again. A big shout out to the Patroonies, patreon.com/ITK Moon Knight. Plenty of incentives there. If you want to become a member, a Patreon, a Patroonie, let us know. Check out the page. There's plenty of stuff there to keep you happy. Also, sponsors Fringe Night. If you check out Daniel's Patreon, patreon.com/Fringe Night 27. You can check out all the incentives to becoming a Fringe Night supporter as well, and supporter of the comic. And as mentioned, Drew Toombs on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Toombs, and Lurk Music with a ck.bandcamp.com. Both sites where you can support Drew and his music. As I mentioned on Bandcamp, there's a nice little discounted bundle there that you can get his whole discography. Well worth it. Also, Dreamland Comics, if you go on their online store and use the code MOON, you'll get 20% off their store. So regardless of whether you're 5 minutes away or whether you're across the pond, go check out. You can order it all online, and Moon will get you some discounts. And finally, we are part of the Collective. So many great shows on there, all to do with comics and geek-related stuff. A big shout-out to Tomes of Evil, a super villain podcast where Justin, you can hear more of Justin's stuff if you know the bare bones wasn't enough. You can satiate yourself with more Justin talk there. Also, as well, a shout out to Ghost Spider Groupies, a Spider Gwen podcast, and I'll say, Signal of Doom, Dave Finn, doing great stuff. They've just had a chat with Steve Englehart, which is really good. Definitely worth checking out.
I'll have to listen to that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Steve Englehart's great. He's a hard one to catch, I think, for interviews, but well done for Dave for that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Oh, it is. It is. And it was a good 1.5 hours, Justin, as well. So he did. Great. Yeah. Considering Steve Englehart is kind of advanced, in age. Anyway, also, you can find us, Loonies. Email us at feedback@itkmoonnight.com. We've got a website, itkmoonnight.com, and we're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Discord, Get Vocal, and Podchaser, all that stuff. And finally, on Podchaser and Apple Podcasts, if you'd like to leave us a review, that would be really cool. It will just help us get out there a bit more in cyberspace and potentially find and connect with other Moon Knight fans and or Loonies. with that, Justin, a huge thank you once again. I'll be catching you shortly for a bit of another little chat, but thank you so much for this was a fun one.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for revisiting this issue with me, because it's one of my favorite Moon Knight appearances of the late 80s.
Yeah, mine too, for sure. And with that, loonies, of course, may Punisher watch over the denizens of the night. Maybe not. Catch you later.
See you, everyone.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.